what I've realized too in fatherhood is no matter how tired I am, no matter, there's always more. There's always more. The most memorable, special, and life-changing day of my life, without a shadow of a doubt, was when our boy Luca was born. And there just isn't time to put up with my own bullshit. And so if we have a disagreement, there's also a level of like, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
So let's work through this as best we can with the tools we have. But there's like a level for me through the marriage and through him. I'm like, no, we're solid.
Yeah.
And I've never felt that before. Now there's so much more of an awareness of when I engage in that, what's the energy behind it? You should be able to communicate everything that you want to say in 12 words or less. Anything more than that is either mental masturbation or is the story. My purpose is to serve men, to be a papa, and to be a fucking good husband.
Mike Salemi, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Super excited to see you, see Victoria, and impromptu visit. So I always appreciate you welcoming me with open arms, my man.
Always, man. Always pleasure to see you. Pleasure to have you. Last time I saw you was pre-fatherhood. Could you say? Is there a word for that?
Pre-papahood?
Pre-papahood. It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it had to have been. Yeah.
So it's been about a year and a half. No,
Yeah.
a year.
I mean, our boy's 10 months, so
Okay.
it had to have been, well over a year.
Yeah.
I imagine, yeah.
Amazing, brother. Talk to me about, let's just dive right in. Talk to me about, it's obviously very present to me as you're sitting here in our home, in my office here. We're about to give birth any day. Well, Victoria is. And you just went through this 10 months ago. Talk to me about what has shifted and changed for you between Mike Salemi 11 months ago and Mike Salemi now.
Oh, man. So I think, or even just the timeline of around 11 months ago, I wasn't married. So, like, I'm married, I have a son, and, I mean, just those two things, just one of those things, fucking life-changing. So, there's aspects that are the same, and there are so many more aspects that are different. Man, this is a big one.
Right in.
Right in. Well, I was telling you outside when we were hanging out, like, I mean, hands down, like the wedding, was very small. At some point we'll do a celebration, and hands down, the most memorable, special, and life-changing day of my life, without a shadow of a doubt, was when our boy Luca was born. And there's so much there, but as I was sharing with you, it was actually hilarious because, and this thought, we'll see what happens, right? But when he was born, the evening that he was born, we actually had a friend over, Justin. And so he was in the kitchen looking at this beautiful Alex Gray painting that we were gifted, and it's called I think it's called The Holy Family. And it's this beautiful man, woman, and then this child with the right finger pointed up. And so our homie Justin was with Lauren, and then all of a sudden, I'm in the garage cleaning. He opens the door. He's like, "Mike, it's time. It's go time." And I'm like, "Oh, shit. I'll see you later, Justin. Let's go." And from that moment, it was 12 hours and such a, like, you're prepared and you're also not prepared. And it was such like a game time decision. And I really feel like the energy and the decision making that we made as a team in that moment, we had planned to do a birth center, some last minute stuff kind of changed our plan, and we adapted and went to the hospital. And when we were there, it was literally, and I was briefly sharing this with you, it was exactly ceremony space. If you didn't know, I mean, outside of the hospital setting, but the energy in the room, it would have been a psilocybin journey, an ayahuasca journey, and the decisions that we made, how we made it, the integrity and just the love in that container. And long story short, doesn't have to be shortened, but when Luke came out and I caught him from that moment, placed him on mama's chest, and then like football player rounded a corner, went to the side, and the first thing that he saw when he opened his eyes was me. And I was just like, oh my God. In that moment, it was just like, this is so real and also surreal at the same moment, because even that whole experience was witnessing Lauren go through that experience. Like, you want to talk about lioness coming out, like, and just in it. And I don't know what time it was. We had ceremony music playing. We had an altar set up. And just the whole time, the energy in the room. And you talk about just like holding that container. I mean, it was just so special. So what's different? Everything. My perspective on life, my role as a man, why I'm here, what being a protector means to me, my level of discernment, the relationships that I want in my life. I'm here for 2.5 days in Texas, and literally, as amazing as the people that I'm with, as purpose focused and driven as the work that I'm doing, I'm literally like, what's the next flight out? Because every single moment that I'm away from him, and I think it's healthy to be away in some regard, but fuck, dude, he's just starting to stand now. Everything's new. So, I mean, there's so much that I could go into, and I'll just say, like, fuck, it's awesome. It's so acutely challenging and exponentially more awesome than I ever could have imagined.
It's a great description. Oh, what did you do in the hospital to bring about that ceremony energy? So I think so many people that are listening. I mean, myself, I was raised in like very traditional. Like, you go to the hospital, you have the baby, and we're intending to do a home birth, and really a big part of that was to be in a peaceful, safe, ceremonial space. And you created it in a place where most people would think like, oh, that's not possible. So like, what is it? How did you set that up? And what difference do you imagine it made for Lauren as she was going through that process?
Absolute game changer, And so, I mean, the way it happened, everything happened so suddenly. And so when we went to the hospital, like, truth be told, I don't even think she had pants on when we got, like, it was just like, you're rushing and you're just like, it was, what's the next logical decision that needs to be made? Not fucking thinking 3 steps ahead. Yeah. What's the next decision and the next decision? And then who's on our team? And so we called our midwife right away. And then we called Dr. Nathan Riley, who's a dear friend, the holistic OBGYN. And they were like, okay, you go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, the midwife met us there. So thank God she was there. So she was like medicine woman as well. Like, she held a very solid place that, like, I held my space, which I'll share. But even just being on the phone with Nathan and talking to him, and like, he was explaining things. So part of me was like, of course there was some fear involved, but part of me also knew that, like, I fucking got this. We got this. And we also are supported, which allowed me to kind of like step into holding that container. So there was some actual very tangible things that I'll share, but also intangible things. So, outside of recognizing what we need to do is go to the hospital. Once we got there, we just wanted to make sure he was okay, which he was. Luca was fine. And then, like, when you're in the hospital setting, there's a few things. Well, one, the lights are bright as shit.
Yeah.
And then you've got so many different people
coming in and out, right? Yeah.
Different energies. They're coming from wherever they're coming from before.
Yeah.
They're bringing in, thoughts, the past person's experience. So you've got a million things, buttons and sounds and things like that. So first it's recognizing, like, yeah, this isn't what was planned. This isn't ideal. But what do we have control with? And so when we got there and the midwife arrived, she's like, everything's fine. We got this.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, great. And so she's like, before like things really start progressing, Mike, you've got, a little bit of time. If you need to go home to grab your stuff, go ahead. So I book it home like 15 minutes away. And it was actually so funny that day, which she wasn't do, I think, for a little bit, like a week or two or something like that.
Yeah.
But I had already started packing.
Yeah.
I was like, first thing. And so on my downstairs, if you've been to my house,
Yep.
on the downstairs table, I had already got my altar set up. And that was the only thing I packed for the most part was, the altar setup. And so I was like, all right, let's fucking get some clothes. And then Lauren had asked me, she's like, sweetie, would you get a blindfold? And I was like, okay. And she said it very casually. And so like, thank God I remembered it, because you want to talk about MVP in that experience? The fucking blindfold. So I grabbed my ceremony stuff, or at least some of the important things. I grabbed like a card deck. I grabbed a little altar cloth, grab a few items, and then not everything, but just like what was there. Grab some clothes, and then I grabbed the blindfold. So then I get to the hospital, and I was like, all right, we already had a ceremony playlist played. So I was like, that's just going on right away. And then when we're in there, like I was very, before going in, like I'd done a few medicine ceremonies and really tried to connect with Luca, tried to connect with, just envision the experience. And one of the things that came up was like my role as a father is being a protector. Now, like a part of that, yes, is financial. A part of that is being the physical protector. But what I realized in ceremony, and that like I knew right away, was like a part of my fucking role is to protect the space, to protect and hold the space. So even when people were coming in and like I couldn't get, it was like me kind of hands off, like literally I would just cross my arms, or I just stayed and I just like held the energy. This is my container. This is our sacred space, and I'm holding that intention. So that was like the first thing. And then the music was helpful. And then having just an altar set up that I could like glance at. And like Lauren didn't even know that I set up the altar. She didn't know until after. But I set it, and so then you had the intention of holding a sacred space. You had music, you had a sacred altar. Then I gave Lauren the blindfold. And so she wears the blindfold, and she actually wore the blindfold through the whole experience, even when Luca came out. Because like, if you imagine a blindfold, like if you lean back, your eyes can still see if you look down slightly. So even when he was placed on her belly afterwards, she still saw him. And what, in her words, paraphrasing, it took out the lights. It allowed, so she stayed, relatively speaking, so internal. And it was magic, just the sounds and the movements. Like she was so in it. And then the midwife, we had done a whole like 8 months prep program with the birth center we were going to go to. And so I had like a rebozo. It's like something like this cloth. You familiar with that?
No.
It's like it's basically like this long towel, let's say, and you could string it up to where you can hold your baby later, but you do different things to like, you can do different things to like massage the hips. I never knew how to use it, but the midwife's like, you brought it, let's use it. So I was like on one side at different points, the midwife's on the other. We got this like big towel blanket thing, and we're just going back and forth like we're chopping wood, and it's like on Lauren's hip, just trying to open things. And literally I was so fatigued, like it was like a full-on kettlebell sport competition. I'm like in a full stance.
I can picture horse stance, like grounded in, like.
And you just go, my abs are on fire, and I'm like, this little midwife Mexican lady is not giving up, so I'm not giving up. I'm like, hold it. So I'm doing that, and it's helping. So I'm like, and it must have been like 10 minutes, 15 of nonstop, and I'm just like, there's no way. And this is a related side note. What I've realized too in fatherhood is no matter how tired I am, there's always more. There's always more. When I'm thinking about my son, when I'm thinking about Lauren, there is always more in me. And so in that moment, I was like, there's no way I'm putting this down. There's no way I'm putting the ball down right now. There's no way. Like, I'm holding this. So being there for that and witnessing, and now I'm talking like I'm an accessory role.
Right.
Lauren's got the ball.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking 99% it's Lauren.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Everything that I'm doing is literally just trying to hold the space, hold the sacredness of the space, and just be a helper.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if she needs water, She wants the music down, I get the music down. But I had maybe less of an active role than I would have thought maybe, but also recognized that I played a very active role reflecting on it. Yeah. So she was just in it. And, so all of those elements, what she was saying also is like that blindfold, once again, that was the make or break, because, when I've obviously didn't have the baby, but you're just so open, energetically, emotionally, sensory. And so when you have lights beeping, peoples, so it allowed her to stay so much more in it. And I really think just those little elements really brought in ceremony into the container. And the last thing that I'll share is when she was 9 centimeters dilated, they're like, okay, like, Lauren, like, try not to push yet because it's almost go time. Yeah. And we need to get the room set up.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And I was like, I'm going to pull a card.
Yeah.
So I had to pull the card. So I brought one of I don't even remember what deck it was, but the card that I pulled, it actually was literally like, no joke, I'll have to send it to you after, looked like a vagina of light. And it said at the bottom, the right choice. And there was that hint of like, did we make the right choice going on? And I was like, oh shit. Okay. And then the card number, I didn't realize this till after, was, what was it? It was the 29th card. He was born on the 29th of 1/29, January 29th.
Wow.
And like, I was like, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, we were supported by Dr. Nathan and the midwife. So those are some of the things that really made a big difference. But I still think the blindfold and then holding the space were two probably of the biggest things.
Beautiful. Yeah, and another shout out to Dr. Nathan. Yeah, we've been going through his course, the Born Free course. It's been so amazing for me, especially just in learning. Like, I had no idea. And it's given me so much more confidence going into this process. And just to like have him in our corner is just game changer. So shout out to him.
He's amazing. He's like, he helped me, like, every time the doctors would come in and be like, hey, we want to do this. I would call him right. This was like, he was almost ready considering flying out.
Wow.
And he's like, you're going to be totally okay.
Yeah.
He's like, I just wanted to be there for you. But he didn't need to come out. But he was just like, okay, this is what this means. This is, here's some options. And so he was just for me, like, because Lauren didn't really know what was going on. I'm stepping out of the room, talking to him like, hey, this is what's going on. And he's like, okay, boom, 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 play by play. So it allowed me to step in, like you're saying, that confidence.
Yeah. So
I'd step back in the room to the best of my ability. There's a lot going on, but I was just like, no, we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
We got this.
Yeah.
Like, and we're a team. So I was really proud. And again, part of that is thanks to Dr. Nathan, but I was so proud of fucking Lauren, how she showed up and witnessing, honestly, that lioness. Like, I had a lot of respect for her.
Yeah.
Now, it's magnitudes more.
Yeah. I feel that. And I'm sure you've shared that with her. Like, yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure she shared with you how you made such an impact to her in setting the room and holding it, and just the way you carry yourself.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, it's the ceremony of all ceremonies. Outside of that and death.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Those are the two. And everything that we're doing in life, even when we enter into plant medicine ceremony, is symbolically or some representation of metaphorically that.
Yeah.
But that is the actual.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been talking with a lot of fathers lately about this process, and just everything in every cell in my body is just like lights up when I hear you talk about it and I hear other fathers talk about it. Just put in the pure joy and excitement and enthusiasm about it. And also just like the even guys that I wouldn't say are necessarily like spiritual in their day to day, like it's like the most ceremonious, most spiritual, most like you're touching like God in that moment. Yeah, literally straight from source. Mm-hmm.
You know what? One of the things when he comes out, and like you always hear like babies have a soft spot on their head,
Mm-hmm.
but like it's legit. Like I remember feeling Lucas. I don't know. It was like plus or minus, let's say roughly like an inch. Like felt like a diamond.
Uh-huh.
Like they are literally structurally like that crown
Yeah.
chakra is like completely physically open.
Yeah. Just skin, like
It's
whatever. Yeah.
just
It's
skin
just,
in
yeah.
the center. I'm like, oh my
Wow.
god, I better not touch that.
Yeah.
Like that is really soft.
Uh-huh.
And now, I mean, there's still a soft spot there, but
Yeah.
it's like the sutures or whatever you
Yeah.
call it on the occiput, like those have closed quite a bit. But I was like, he is so like, there's no closer to source, whatever that is for somebody than that. So like, there's a symbolic opening,
Yeah.
but he's literally physically open, and it's like so. Like I think they call it the fourth trimester. Like it takes like a month or more. Like he's still raw.
Yeah.
Like when he comes out of that,
Mm-hmm.
or she comes out of that, like, and so there's like it's they're porous,
Yeah.
energetically and physically porous,
Mm.
which is also why I think as the father, like, it's really important to protect that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and everyone does however they please, but like for us it was really important. Like even guests or who would visit and stuff like that were just like, you know, just give us some time. And we did everything for us super low key. And but I was just like completely awestruck when I was in the hospital holding him. I was like, wow, no, he's like not just like this idea of being open and porous, like he's still forming. He's still like solidifying into a boy.
Material reality right now. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Mm. What has he shown you or taught you in the last 10 months from that moment where he entered the world and opened his eyes to see you to today?
Fuck. Maybe like one of the first things that I'll share is the surprise of it. I was briefly sharing with you outside. Like I thought being a dad was going to be this like life of servitude and like, especially in these early years, right? Like I'm chaperoning him into the world and like representing the world and all that shit. And then I was like, the purity and the innocence. Like I always appreciated children from my experience, but never really felt super connected, you know, like, but now it's like, he's my son. You look in his eyes and you see a part of you. Like just that. And like the, I mean, in the men's work you lead, the men's work, like eye gazing is a part, right? Of that in some way, shape or form. Very intimate, very vulnerable. And even just holding eyes with another man or another person is so connecting and vulnerable. This little guy, endless hold. And you're just like looking, and you're just looking at a part of you. You're looking at a part of God or source. You're looking at like what it represents. So the innocence and the purity are probably the two most striking things. And then holding him, like I'm holding my son. And then I'm also recognizing, holy shit, if he is a part of me, what does it feel like if I hold him and connect to, like I have these stories that I've learned or built up in my reality that, you know, I'm imperfect. There's something wrong with me. I'm not enough. And those have propelled me to some pretty powerful things in life. However, what I've recognized and what he's taught me is like, I would never, ever look at my son and say, you're not enough, you're incomplete, you're not perfect. His essential nature is perfect. And I'm not saying like we don't improve in life, but what I've realized within myself, it's one, connecting to that part of me. And when I strive to improve, to do, to be better, now there's so much more of an awareness of when I engage in that, what's the energy behind it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it coming from a place of lack, of separation, of I need to take this course or I need to do this because deep down I'm not enough and etc.
Yeah.
Or is it coming from I don't need it,
Yeah.
I'd like it, and my genuine inspiration is to teach and share the wisdom that I have with the world, irrespective of potentially how it's going to be received. So I look at him and I connect with that, and then I connect with myself. And then actually a friend of ours, Brian Osuna, shared with me this one piece that has been very powerful. So it was that, connect with him, love him, feel him, embrace him, fucking just connect to the miracle that he is. Then connect to that within me, super powerful. And then connect to my father. And even go back into the lineage. And it's just felt like this, like connecting with the essential nature of all of that lineage. One of the most surprising things has been how selfishly healing it's been for me. And then I'll say on a lighter note in this regard, I've always felt like for those who know me at home, I imagine they would say like I'm disciplined, I'm serious, I'm orderly, I'm like present, I'm whatever. And there's also a super goofy side.
Oh yeah.
Like I fucking love messing around. However, typically I don't allow myself to be silly or to be playful by and large until the work's done.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I have an edible, I joke, I run around naked, fucking.
I've seen glimpses of that.
Yeah. I fucking throat sing randomly, you know. Oh, that was it. I'll share that after. That's been so powerful. But what he's really teaching me, dude, is play. Because like we switch off and we support each other very much so. But like typically 4:30 in the morning or so, 5 when he wakes up, he's crawling over me and he's just like on my neck. And he's just all smiles, the happiest of happy.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh man, okay, all right, let's go. Pick him up, go downstairs, and we just crawl and we giggle and we laugh. And there's no outcome. And I've never, like one of Lauren's values, I would say, is play. Mm-hmm. So just being with her has brought a bunch of healing into me. But then with my son, I'm like, there is no objective.
Yeah.
We're just playing, you know? Like, he's going to hold my finger and laugh. And he's going to just, I'm making duck sounds. And that's just been fucking magical.
Freeing.
So liberating, freeing, connecting to my little child inside. That's been amazing. It's so funny to me. Well before he was here, you know this, when I first made the decision that men's work is something that I wanted to pursue, it came via spending some time in the woods. And I was like allowing myself to dream, what if I gave myself full permission? What do you want to do? How do you want to show up in this next phase? Before even Luca or you, I was married to Lauren. And I was like, well, 1, men's work, 2, shamanic drum I want to learn. Yeah. And then 3, throat singing, Mongolian throat singing.
Yes.
So I spent about a year doing weekly lessons with this throat singing coach. You noticed? Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I spent about a year every single week, and I'd be in my office sounding horrible. And like Lauren would be listening downstairs. And there's, from my knowledge, and I'm still very much learning, but there's different styles of traditional throat singing. So kagura is it's the deepest note. Yeah. It's like the root chakra note. And there's 3 to 4 different main styles like sagut, hortir, khume, and then kagura. And so I would practice those. And I'd just be the best time for me to do it was in the car because I was just going. but I never thought there was no purpose.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, this is something I want to do, feels really good, is opening me up, is opening my voice. And then when he came, I would do it and it would put him to sleep like that. Because one of the questions I had for a long time before, not a long time, but a brief time, was like, I know the role of mom from my understanding. Like, and the poor advice, honestly, that I got from a few fathers was, for the first 2 years, forget about,
It's like irrelevant. Fathers are irrelevant. Yeah. That's what I've been told by some as well.
Like,
yeah.
Fuck that.
Fuck that. Yeah.
Fuck that. Like, that may have been true for you.
Yeah.
Great. Not for me.
Yeah.
So I was searching. I was like, what's my role going to be in these early times? And what I found is like, when I sang, so I would sing to him for hours, throat sing, or just make up songs. And the vibration of the throat singing vibrates the throat and my whole chest. So when I go skin to skin with him and I hold him and I sing, and he could be wailing, even now. Like, we have a routine at night, like, I kind of start him off and then Lauren finishes breastfeeding, then he goes to sleep. And it's been immediately down regulation of his nervous system. He could be wailing and boom, he synchronizes with my nervous system and we're instantly connected and he's just out. And I was like, I never would have guessed the throat singing. And so now, like, I have a purpose of connecting, of soothing, and it's just been, and it could be other things too, but that's just been, I'll be driving in the car and he's wailing and I'll throat sing and boom.
Wow.
He'll go down. And so that was just like such a surprise. And I was like, wow, like, that's something I can do. And so there's been so many. That's just like probably 3 big ones. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. Oh.
It's the best. It's the fucking best.
How has your relationship with Lauren shifted since Luca has entered?
Deeper, for sure. Massive calling up. So in many respects, infinitely deeper, more connected. And also, like, from the challenges perspective, very challenging. One of the things that, like, we've struggled with, are struggling with, and working through is, like, it's such a full-time job. Like, we have a little bit of help, you know, a few hours from her mom once, twice a week. My parents now a little bit. But really, like, intimacy time. And he's at an age where now we can start bringing in some help. And planning things. Like, we got to be much more strategic with, like, that. But like, intimacy's challenging. Like, even when we have, full transparency, been physically intimate, he might wake up and he might, it's just like, or he, like, the amount of times, like, we've been physically intimate and then he cries or, like, wakes up from a thing. So that's been probably the most challenging. And the other thing that I've realized too is, you know, like, when we see like a mothering role, right? It's very nurturing. It's very loving. It's the mother archetype. Yeah. However, it's, in my experience, and as we're finding out, it's actually quite masculine in the sense it's like there's a schedule, there's execution, there's like you're doing a lot. Like, yes, you're nurturing, but like there's a lot of output. Yeah. Like, she's nurturing him, but she's putting out a lot of things. So from the polarity side of things, like, that's also something that requires a lot of mindfulness of, like, I'm outputting in a different way and she's also outputting in a different way at a high level. So, and there's a lot of touch points on that. So it's like giving her opportunities as much as possible to, like, relax and surrender into her feminine nature and, like, you know, even finding ways for her to express herself or give her that space and that container, because there's so much it blows me away at how much is required of her. So, you know, infinitely more beautiful. I I mean, we talk all the time. Like we do these drives from 7 to 8 p.m. at night where Luca gets to fall asleep in the back and we don't have a cell phone and we connect as he's falling asleep. And like, I mean, the amount of times we say like, fuck, we're blessed. God damn, like he's beautiful. Just, he's a miracle. And like, so my level of love, respect, willingness to, I mean, when I married her, I was already committed.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's no doubt. And bringing in a child into this world is a whole nother level. So what it's also done is like, even through past pain of past relationships where it's like there's fears, I've realized like even when we fight, you know, if we fight, you know, we try to fight fair, right? And we've got some tools to help in dialogue and communication. But there's been this internal safety that I've felt. I'm like I'm in it.
Yeah.
I'm committed. I know she is.
Yeah.
And so if we have a disagreement, there's also a level of like, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
So let's work through this as best we can with the tools we have. But there's like a level for me through the marriage and through him. I'm like, no, we're solid.
Yeah.
And I've never felt that before. So that's also like energetically,
Yeah.
like I'm more willing to engage in conflict, which has always been a challenge for me. Cause I'm like, no, like
Yeah.
we're okay. So yeah.
It's like similar to how you were sharing a little bit earlier about like where the energy is coming from is like in this case, like the energy is starting from the foundation of like, no, we're okay. Like this is just a thing. And at the end of the day, we're okay. And we're both in it. And, yeah, I feel like that's such a huge shift for so many couples. And I imagine a child is one way to catapult that. I man, I don't know how true it is. I saw an infographic on Instagram the other day, and it was the calculation of a full-time 40-hour work week, like 9 to 5 normal job, was like, I don't know, 1,000 something hours. And then it was like full-time breastfeeding mom was like the exact same calculation. But there's not the same schedule of clock in and clock out. It's just like whenever on call for a year of like, yeah. And so I don't even know how, this is my next question is what I was leading to is like, how has like day-to-day life and like work and like, how have you been able to hold both of those roles or all of those roles and her as well? Like, how have you guys navigated that?
Navigating.
Fair. Honest as fuck.
You know, Lauren has, I'm sure she's fine with me sharing this. One of the things that we're working through presently is like, and again, everyone's got their way of doing things. We're figuring out what works for us. And I think one time you did a post on like any, something like any advice for a new parent or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that because I was like, the best advice I would give is fucking follow what you guys want to do. Be a team and like, whether it's books, whatever you guys want to do, it's on you. Like everyone's trying to figure this shit out. And then I also recognize people are having babies for millions of years or whatever, hundreds of thousands of years. So if they can do it, like I'm pretty sure like, I'll figure it out. I'll fuck up, but I'll figure it out. So to your question, you know, I've stepped into the role of financial provider at this phase of life. She stepped into the role of mama, and the recognition, like I've shared with her, I was like, and she's so talented and she's got such a desire to serve, from nutrition to health coaching to mental emotion. Like she's incredible. And so I can understand, as purpose driven and as on purpose as she feels being a mom, there's also a part of her that feels unexpressed. And I can see how that can be really challenging, especially seeing me out there doing, serving. And so I know that's not necessarily easy. And so what I've tried to share with her is like, we can do this however we want.
Yeah.
But I also recognize in this phase of life, when the needs are the codependent needs of the infant, of Luke, are so dependent on you, based off of how we've decided we're going to parent
Yeah.
and breastfeed or whatever, and our choice to be home with him and stuff like that, that's going to be, there's going to have consequences or whatever.
Yeah.
Not repercussion, but
It's like
consequences.
cause and effect.
Cause
It's
and
like,
effect.
that's just the effect. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, but also recognize that every day that goes by, he becomes a more autonomous individual.
Mm.
And we are able to accept more help. We have a loving family. Like, we're able to do this. So recognize, like, we're continually getting closer to you having more freedom. And what she's voiced is the feeling of, we've been at times in this divide and conquer energy. Like, we both do our things separate. I fucking work my ass off. She mothers her tail off, and it's amazing. And I'm actually okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm good with that. However, we're really trying to be more of a team and figure out day to day, what does that look like? And she's got so many skills, not only on her own, but that can benefit my business. And so she's voiced, like, I want to work more together. And I didn't, and we're still getting clarity on what that looks like and what that feels like. She's like, I want to work with you. Now my head jumps to, like, are you going to be the branding department?
Yeah.
Like the quote unquote department,
my
one person business. Are you going to be the account? Like, what, you know, like, because I grew up in family businesses. So I'm like, who's going to play what role?
Yeah.
And then this is just literally in the last few months. And then we spent a Saturday just mapping out stuff. And she's got great ideas, great, like, one of the things I appreciate most about her is her level of honesty. Fucking, like, she's a straight shooter, you know, and that comes with, that's beautiful and challenging, right? But that's also why I married her. And so we had this day, like a breakout session, and I checked in with her. I was like, how did that feel today? She's like, that's what I wanted. Like that. And I was like, oh, so what she was really wanting is connection. And she doesn't, at least in this point in time, it's not that she's looking to be the branding department of Mike Salemi's whatever. It's like she just wants to play a part in it. And she wants to do things together. The feminine wants connection. And if I'm out, you know, I'm always available. Like, I'll drop a meeting in a heartbeat to go downstairs and help, and I'll play that role. But she just wants to spend time and feel like she's supported and she can support. So we're really looking at, with where we're at, what does team look like? What's important to her? What's important to me? How can we come up with a new agreement based off of where we're at, recognizing that things will change? Like, she just sent me a text a few hours ago, and me and this new business coach, Stefan, great dude that I was talking to, I was telling him in the car, he was driving me to these appointments while I was out in Texas, and he's always encouraged me, like, you should do something with Lauren. Like, and I was like, dude, she's such a fucking good coach.
Yeah.
She's got so much experience in that realm. And like, at some point we would love to do it. Right now, men is kind of the focus, but at some point when I feel ready, like, or we'll figure out something. And I was like, and then she sends me a message saying, I'd like to get back into coaching. And I was like, how can we make that happen? Let's heartstorm when we get back. Let's figure it out. Cause like, I'm down. I want to be a co-parent. I want to work and provide, but I also want to play that present father role. So I'm like, if we can make this work, which we can, we just got to come up with an agreement that feels good, and you know, and we'll tag team this. So it's so malleable, and we're so figuring out. It's like we're having these discussions because, okay, we realize for this moment, okay, energy's off. Why is energy off? What are the roles that we're playing? What are the needs in the moment? And we're just doing our best to cruise with it. But a lot of it comes from like the recognition, like things either feel really good or things feel off. How can we get back to center? And how can we create a new agreement so that both needs and the family's needs are met?
How has, that's beautiful and so honest. Thank you. How has your work changed since Luca came into the world? Partially practically, but also energetically. Like, what have you brought different to your work that you didn't have access to before?
Such a good question. How I'm experiencing myself, we'll see if other people experience this, but I feel more embodied. I feel like there's still for sure limiting beliefs. There's still all that stuff that come up, but there's a new level of honesty and self-accountability. Like a lot of it, sure. Yeah. There's unconscious programs that still run. I'm still figuring, I'm still on this journey like everybody else, but it's almost like the internal dialogue is like, Mike, you don't fucking have time to play small. You don't. You've got two people. I look at my son and it's like, what? I'm not going to, I don't know. Like the level of willingness to be more direct or assertive or step into a leadership role, which are things that maybe it's like, I enjoy, like part of me is the nice guy and that's still there or kind or whatever. And I love being kind and warm is part of who I am. And I'm so much more willing to say what needs to be said in the moment because I also recognize that, one, that's what's needed in the moment, but that's also how I'm going to lead, but that's also how I'm going to model for him.
Yeah.
So the willingness to be honest, the willingness to step up, incredibly more essential. Like I think one of the skills that I have honed and am still very much honing is my level of discernment. Like I really believe if you're living a life of purpose and you've got some skills, there will never be a shortage of opportunities. Never.
Yeah.
No. So the question is, what is the discernment skill? Like, what's the filtering system? So from how I run the podcast to the men's work to now, like I don't want to say I took a break from teaching movement, but I was so into men's work that I also realized like I kind of left movement for a little bit. And now I'm like so much more invigorated. One, because it's like been my bread and butter for most of my life.
Yeah.
And now I've got like this even more purpose. And I'm like, dude, I'm actually really good at teaching movement. Yeah. I'm going to fucking lean into that.
Yeah.
Like I could teach bags or bells or I don't know, breath work. Like we could go outside right now and I could be exhausted and I would feel very good about leading that and delivering a solid session. So like my discernment, my willingness to lean into things, the leadership, but that embodiment piece is like, it's just less of like, there's less doubting. Less doubting.
It's like no room for it.
There's
anymore.
no room for it.
Yeah.
Because what's it's not just about me anymore. And when I got married, there was a level of that, yes. But now it's like, you see this being that's so precious. And I've heard this before, two things. One, having a child is like having your heart outside of your body, which is so accurate. And then it's like being on an IV drip of MDMA. Literally like, boom. You'll see it, boom. And then he smiles and boom, your heart and it's this continual MDMA drip.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I feel so much more filled with love, like deep, deep, deep love for life, for him, for Lauren, for myself. And there just isn't time to put up with my own bullshit as much as I'm conscious of. Or if I am conscious that it's happening, it causes me quite a bit more stress because I recognize and I'm like, no, next time we're like, let's work through that. And the willingness is just like at an 11. Yeah. Through through the roof.
Yeah. What were some of the things that you used that discernment muscle to cut out? Like what fell away, either organically or by decision, that you're just like, look, this isn't it right now?
Certain relationships, friendships, like I'm blessed. Like I got a lot of friends, and also he requires so much. And I just shared with you, like, intimacy and time with Lauren is one of the biggest challenges. So if I say yes to, again, no shortage of opportunities, no shortage of beautiful relationships, nothing against the people, but my circle is so much tighter. Because if I say yes to that, or if I stay in Texas for an extra day, then by default, I'm saying no in some regard to my family. And that there's a weight to that. Like there's a responsibility to that. And I think, and I don't know if this is not quite off track, but like, I don't know if I would say it's guilt, but there's a feeling of, and I heard a friend say this too, so I don't even remember what friend, but I've really resonated with this in my own experience. It's like when I'm working, I don't know if it's a guilt, but there's a feeling like I'm working, I want to spend time with Luke and the family. So there's that pull there. But then if I'm spending time with Luke and the family, it's amazing. But then there's also like, I also recognize the responsibility that I'm the provider. So I also need to do that too. And so certain relationships, it's just like, I just don't got time. And I'm way more unapologetic. Like, and if they don't get it, that's on them. Like, I take this role very lightly and very seriously. So certain relationships have definitely fallen off, or like, you know, business stuff, like the level in which I might like overuse, in my experience, social media. Like the more every minute, again, all this comes back to life is a trade-off. Right? Like every decision that we make is something else that we could or couldn't be doing. So if I choose to scroll, not saying I don't not scroll, but if I'm choosing that consciously or unconsciously, I'm also choosing to say no somewhere else. So what's a yes, what's a no? I mean, I was doing for a time 8 podcast episodes a week. So I'm sorry, a month, not a week. That'd be insane. Fuck that. But 2 a week, and with an infant, when you need, for the most part, you need silence to record, or you know, right? So a lot of times, like, I'll be up super late because it's quiet, and then I'm already tired. So it's like, and I also know at 4:35 a.m. I need to be up to be Papa. And then I got to be dialed in for work and lead these groups or be on a podcast. Like, I love the diversity, but it really requires like a skill to be able to show up and lead a one-on-one physical training session, then to emotionally be there for someone who's like losing
transition.
And I got to fucking hold it. And then to bring the energy on a podcast, whether it's a guest or an interview, or different, as you know very well, it's a different energy. And so I think just I said, okay, I'm going back to 1 show a week. Even like hiring a business coach. And now, like, what I've realized within myself, like, I've hired some great coaches and I've learned a lot, and they've helped in all different regards. And I've typically had the pattern that I would pedestal them, lose a part of myself. And again, I'm hiring them for their guidance. So there is a level of like, I'm definitely willing to follow. But now I'm like, the filtering is like, I've got way more ownership and not letting go, still listening. But it's way more, instead of departing from what's true for me, or how's this going to impact the family. And that's something that I think too, like, when I make a decision, this all goes back to the trade-offs. There's repercussions, there's consequences. Always. So there's no shortage of, again, opportunities, but also no shortage of good ideas. The key is, for me, it's like, which ones are you going to do? Because every single one of those marketing campaigns, one of those relationships requires X amount of hours of back-end work to bring to life, to nurture, all that stuff. So for me, it's like, I'm very now online movement programs. It's a big part of my business. Men's work in the capacity of an online container, like 1 to 2 retreats a year, reducing the podcast. And that is more than enough. More than enough. Now it's just getting better and more efficient, and just getting better at what I'm already doing. Cause that, man, it all goes back to like, My purpose is to serve men,
Mm-hmm.
to be a papa, and to be a fucking good husband. And also to be, and with the purpose, serve men, like, that's my fulfillment.
Yeah.
To live a fulfilled life. And Luke is a big part, Lauren, it's part of my legacy.
Yeah.
So it's all like connected. And that discernment piece, though, is like the big aspect.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. It's already started. A lot of what you share is starting to sink in with me, and I imagine it's just going to increase with intensity. About like the consequences, decisions, and where you spend your time, and the way I've been thinking about it is like when I choose to put my attention on something, my time, energy, and attention, like really getting honest with what's the nourishment that I'm getting from this. Like what's the real why of like why I'm doing this? And if I can't honestly answer that, it's a no. And if I can answer that and it's like, okay, this is the nourishment, then I better commit when I go to do that thing or go off or do this project or whatever. It's like, I better get that because I'm committing to myself. I'm committing to Victoria and in the future to our daughter that like, I'm going to come back better having done this. And if I don't consistently do that, then that's just showing me that what I'm telling myself isn't true. I'm not really getting what I need from that. And so it then just becomes a distraction. Like anything from like hanging out with a friend to scrolling on social media or even in business is like, I better have outcomes from like what I'm doing because there's like no more time to just play in that. It's like if I'm going into for a purpose and a mission, like accomplish the mission and like come back. And that's how I've been starting to view a lot of things. And I've had a similar experience where I've just cut out a lot more people, a lot more things. And um, I laugh because even me, like a year ago, 2 years ago, definitely 3 years ago, like what I enjoy in life is already drastically different. Like drastically. And someone was telling me just last night about like they went to a show and it was like Closey was playing here in Austin. Like love seeing Closey. And when I first saw like all my friends were going, I had like a little bit of FOMO and even a ticket showed up that was like, oh, you can go. And I was like, I actually don't even want to. Like, I really don't want to. I wanted to stay home on a Saturday and spend time with Victoria. And I imagine that's only going to increase with little tiny infant. Yeah.
When you were sharing that, one of the things that, like that distraction piece, I think is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've used this analogy before. So in our master bedroom, there's a bathroom in there, and our house is old. It's like, I don't know, 60, 70 years old, something like that. And that sink, the pipes are all old, galvanized. And so the bathroom, at a certain point, the water started getting less and less and less. Mm. Then it came to a drip, and then it stopped. And I never, every time I passed the room or would go into the bedroom, I'd always, like, some minor aspect of me, my consciousness would get pulled. And it was like an energy leak. And so for like 6 months, I didn't fix it. But I always knew it was there. And what I've realized is, so after I got it fixed, I just noticed it actually wasn't small. It was actually a significant in what it represented me. I was like, wow, how many fucking energy leaks do I have in my life? So I made a list, and it was like on a poster board sheet of paper. I was like, Jesus, there's like 15 things, boxes that need to be broken down outside that have been stacked up forever. I don't even know, things that I've said I was going to do, like get a 50-pound bag of rice in case anything happens. Like I go outside and you see that whatever the state of the world, I'm like, I should probably have some preparations. So all those things, like now being a dad, like the weight of those, one, to actually be able to more effectively provide and protect. But then two, I was like, every subtle, even if it's like half of 1%, pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls the energy away. And so I've really done my best to identify those energy leaks and those distractions. Not saying they're not there, but I'm really closing the faucet or getting the water to get, to run again. And it's given me more energy.
Yeah.
It's given me more energy, more life force, more just like, I really think clarity for men, for all people, but especially for men, is a superpower.
Yeah.
So like, especially for like people who execute, if I've got the clarity, and what pulls away from clarity, it's like these mini, like little, like, it's like when you sprint and you see the parachute behind.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to run and you got like 15 parachutes holding you back.
Yeah.
You see that, you see the direction, but you're being pulled, and it's like you fix these energy leaks or you address them. It's like snip, 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 and boom, you're on the races.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, I've been noticing how I like unconsciously leave open loops even in conversations and text messages and stuff. And so I've just been practicing like closing it, like if I'm not going to follow up with you, I'm going to tell you I'm not going to follow up with you. Like, and even in my coaching and like my sales calls, like I'm not letting things drag. It's like, this is the deadline. This is when I'll follow up with you. It's in my calendar. This is when we're doing, and like, that's it. And then it's out of my mind. And I've been practicing that with even friends. And I have a friend of mine, Alan. He's one of my business partners as well. And he called me on it a little bit, like, not a little bit, about 2 months ago. And he's like, just the way you respond to text messages is very inconsistent. And so what I've started practicing doing is giving boundaries, and then also closing the loop in the moment versus letting anything like continue on. Because then I'm thinking about it, then someone else is thinking about it, then it's just an energy drain. So that's one thing I've been practicing a lot, and I've been noticing as I've been aware of it, like how many open loops I have. Even just like a casual, like, yeah, like, let me know when you do this thing. Like, that's now an open loop. It's like, no, like, let's answer that right now. Like, we know the answer. Like, why are we even putting it off? So let's get to it. So it's definitely brought like a sharpness and a fierceness. And I'm starting to feel that way. It's almost like I'm bringing, because that's how I facilitate. I get pretty sharp these days. It's getting sharper every day and fiercer. And I'm starting to bring it into my life, because I'm like, okay, if I don't like put up with that in the coaching container and facilitating with this, like, really what it is just like the bullshit fluff. If I don't put up with that bullshit fluff, like, why would I put up with that in my personal life? So it's like, start cutting away the fluff, cutting away the open loops, and just closing them. So that's something I've been practicing, and it only came up because I've started to become more aware of like how my energy bleeds and drips in certain things. And
thank you for sharing that. That's like one, hugely helpful for me, because I haven't quite had words for that. And I've recognized, like, I mean, I even said this years ago when I was like wanting to energize a life partner. I was like, I wanted to meet my life partner while I was teaching. Because I felt like that was the most I didn't have the language back then, but that was the clearest I felt.
Yeah.
And I was like, I knew I was on purpose, doing what I love. And so when I'm in those containers, the best parts of Mike feel like they come out.
Yes.
And that fluff, and that's exactly what I'm working through now, is like, there is a discrepancy.
Yeah.
Like, there's a noticeable discrepancy, especially more times than others, but it's how can I bring like the no bullshit, or just the I don't know, that, yeah, whatever, the no fluff, but have it be, as opposed to I step into this container and I be this person. It's like, that's who I feel most alive and like most clear and like most direct and like, and in that regard, most loving and most present. And yet there's many examples in my daily life where that's not. And now, like, hearing that and having more awareness around that, it's like, that's a very practical way, cell phone texts, where I can start like closing that gap. So that's super helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Another one that's been really powerful for me that I've been practicing, it's on the same thread of like how I show up in retreat or in facilitating versus how I show up in my daily life. was around relationships, mostly for me with men. That's most of my non-partner relationship is all men. And so what I realized that I really loved about being in those containers was, again, how no bullshit it is, how someone's willing to tell you the truth, but it's from such a heart-centered place that you can receive it. And I realized that I wasn't doing that in my personal relationships. And I just started bringing this, like, asking for consent and like reflection when I see something, and not coaching, but just like reflecting what I'm seeing. And what it has done for me has sharpened up the container of the people, the men especially, that I hang around with. And so I'm actually getting more nourishment when I hang out with them. Like, I'm getting like a full men's group when I hang out with men, because they're like, we now are creating the dynamic that we get benefit by hanging out. It's not just social anymore. And so I think in a way for me, it was like tightening up and making relationships more efficient for what I actually want. Because like, I love my guy friends, but like, I'm not going to get the same love that I have with Victoria and with a daughter on the way. And I'm not going to get this like pure joy of like a child. And so it's like, what am my boys for? What are the men that I hang around for? And they're like, that's to sharpen me. And so I was like, I'm going to lead and bring more of that.
I love that.
I was invited into just a brief story on that. I've been practicing it, and it felt like I finally had the acknowledgement that I was doing. I was invited into a men's circle, and they were like potentially to join, and I showed up, and it was really loose, and it came to me to like share, and they were asking like, oh, what do you think about the group and this? And I just spoke really honestly. I said, look, I wouldn't join this group or a group like this for these reasons. And this is what I want to get out of it, is like, I don't need more casual social friends. Like, I don't need that. I'm full. How I choose to spend my time with men is to sharpen me and to give me like the honest truth of what's there and like how I'm occurring to you. And I even said, I was like, I'd want more depth and more sharpness. And someone's like, hey, can you give an example of that? And I was like, yeah, honestly, like, I don't know half this room, or just like surface know a few of you guys, but I could give you a reflection right now of how I could trust you more, like in this moment, just as a man, how you're occurring to me. And I was like, it doesn't mean anything, but like, I could give that to you. And then someone asked for an example who like didn't believe that I could do it. And I basically just like cut through the bullshit of the room, because they were in this stage where like they didn't know what the group was. And I just like cut through the bullshit, and it was like it wasn't like an aggressive one. And I asked, and so I shared it, and it was just around like how he was moving, and he was like really fidgety, and he was like getting up and moving around as we were having this like deeper conversation. And I just said, I was like, I would trust you more, like if you were seated during the time when this is like sacred space. And apparently it caused like a little bit of thing in the group. But I had so many men reach out to me afterwards, especially the ones that I knew, and even guys I didn't really know well. They were like, thank you for bringing that, because we like, everyone wanted it but didn't know how to articulate or lead in that way. It's like, that was the level. Because what happened after that, it was all like bullshit and heady. And then after that moment, it like, boom, dropped to the bottom of the ocean. And then it opened up other guys. Other guys started sharing with like, oh man, when you did this, I felt this. And it was like, and they told me, they're like, we haven't gotten to that level. And they've even sat in ceremony and stuff, and they had these like full retreats, and they're like, that has been missing. And they're like, thank you for bringing that. I had so many guys reflect that. And it just reminded me of like, oh, if I'm going to lead in this container over here and show up the way that I truly desire, and like how I want to be seen and really by myself in the world, and how I want to receive others, like do that every moment. It was like another efficiency piece. It's like, okay, I've only got so many moments on this earth. I was like, I'm going to make these the exact way that I want to create it. And I started doing it. And that was one of my affirmations, and I loved it. And I loved every second of it. And they still joke about it. They're like, yeah, Chris came in and blew up the meeting, and like, but yeah, in a way, like, I don't want to be surrounded by guys that can't handle that or aren't welcoming it is really a better question. It's like I want to have honest conversations, and in both sides of the spectrum, like just sharing, like we always share, like just the deep love we have with each other, like that's a form of truth. And we also share sharpness with each other, and that's what I've been practicing and calling more in. For me, it's just like another preparation for fatherhood. Is like, I mean, you can't hide from the child. They feel everything. And so it's like I want to be in every moment, not just some moments, the man that I aspire to be. So that's what I'm leaning into and working on right now. Yeah.
Like, what a gift. Like, what a gift. I mean, when I've talked to dads who I like respect or like, you know, just hear their experience, in some way, shape, or form, the most common advice or experience that they've shared is literally your kid wants nothing other than your presence. And so like how I'm experiencing that and hearing that, it's like the more that you are you moment to moment, the more that I am me moment to moment, therefore the more present I am with myself and they can be there for my boy. And it's like that's all he wants. When he sees me in the morning and we go play in his little playpen, it's like he isn't, I don't know. He might want a berry. There's some great berries in the back. He might want a little bit of mama's milk. But for me, he just wants presence. Yeah. He wants touch. He wants to feel like that's it. So in that regard, it's like, yes, life is complex, but like it's actually quite simple. Like when you look at like the nourishment of a child, like you have the nourishment of food, like he needs mama's milk, okay? He needs touch. He needs safety. He needs connection. He needs a clean diaper, whatever it is. But it's like it's very basic. And so it really strips down so much in that presence piece. And you're right, like he can feel it. She can feel it. And it's just how much are we paying attention? You have such a porous, open being. It's like, and that's like one reason why I'm so grateful to witness Lauren and how she's done this. I was sharing with you and Victoria earlier. She's wicked smart, big researcher. Like I think in college or something, she wanted to be like a forensic. Like, so she like loves her research and all that. It's beautiful. I like studying too, but she's like another level. And witnessing her just do this whole thing like intuitively, it's been so nourishing or like so inspiring. It's probably more accurate. Inspiring, and even like you know, like I love teaching movement, and like there's so many things I could have done, and I was just like, why don't you just like take a step back, like and just see how things are gonna go, and just adapt, and like let this is probably like one thing also that he's teaching me is like let this experience, let my boy teach me the next move. Like he'll teach me. It's very simple if I'm aware of it. And then like one thing that's really cool is like you start learning him or her. You start learning like, what does this cry mean? What does this sound mean? What is this like what is like he digests with his whole body right now. It's like, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing, dude? What's going on? And you just like, there's so much like, yes, there's big things, but it's so nuanced. Yeah. And like, that's really why, like, I think mothers especially, like they know, like unconscious, like they can just feel energetically. And actually, if you spend enough time around your child, you'll feel that too. And like he's always like, from the way his eyes or his mouth or the type of cry, like we'll know, like, is that his teeth hurt? Is that like that, or whatever, to the best I can to make sense, you know, it's like, is that his teeth hurting? No, it's not his teeth hurting. Like there's infinite signs that are shown, like how he rubs his eyes. And like, that's been a super cool thing to like really tune into, like, what's he displaying? and then what is needed from me in the moment to respond, and then what's needed from Lauren and I, and then how can we create a dynamic that, again, is flow and team. And when we're off and we feel things off, it's like, okay, how can we bring it back?
Yeah.
But that's been such a cool surprise, is to let him be the teacher, and then can I pay attention to the most subtle nuances within his expressions, his sounds, his movements. It's got my toes. Got my toes, and just like how he moves his feet, and yeah, it's special. He's got my toes.
It's gonna move.
Well,
pro mover.
I apologize to him day in, day out. Not day in, day out. Took a course. Someone told me I had fucking hobbit feet.
What?
And I was like, who says that to someone else in a course?
Yeah.
Walking around saying, it's like, man, you got some hobbit feet there. Yeah. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Dude.
1-star review.
Yeah. Telling another man he has hobbit feet.
Yeah.
So when he came out, and Lauren just like, oh my God, he's got your feet. Sorry, son. You got a last name that sounds like salami, and you got hobbit feet.
Yeah. If that is the toughest challenges he has in this life, he's doing okay. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that's beautiful, man. I was thinking, like, as you were saying that about your child's expression, there's so much to be learned for us as well, because he doesn't have words yet, and so he's literally just using he also doesn't have a filter, so he's just expressing the truth of he's going through, and you're just picking up on the signals and you're like mapping them. But how applicable is that to us as adults as well, both unconsciously and consciously, like how we're carrying ourselves unconsciously, and like our body patterns, and what are we expressing to others by doing so? And then on the flip side, when we start to consciously have awareness of that, how we can actually control is maybe not the right word, but create the experience of how we want to show up in the world without our words. This is a huge thing that I think I focus on really well with men, is like, how can you say more with less? And how can you use your breath, especially, and your body and your posture and your stillness to communicate something, instead of just going right to the how we think words are so easy, but they're actually not really good at doing the deeper emotional stuff. In fact, they're not at all good. And so for men especially that have trouble with connecting and getting to deeper and deeper intimate spaces, is because can you just shut the fuck up and let's learn how to use our body to communicate safety, to communicate love, and not just go to the ease of words, because they are powerful. Yes, they're powerful in a way, but we can communicate so much feeling and emotion through our body and even our sounds, just not necessarily articulate a word, but express how you're feeling in a sound. And I think it gives us so much more in the feeling sense. And I think that can really relate to us as adults too. A deep sigh says a lot more than a whole diatribe of what you're going through. Oh, this in my life, but just a or whatever the sound is, a guttural noise. That's how I was receiving as you were telling. Is such lessons and wisdom in that. That you're paying such deep attention to him, but that's how we're all occurring in the world. We're just like grown up children. Yeah.
One thing, I think you hit it spot on. One thing that we really tried to work in this last retreat was I invited in the concept of 12 words or less. If you can't say something, you should be able to communicate everything that you want to say in 12 words or less. Anything more than that is either mental masturbation or is the story. Not that there's not a time and a place for the story, but 12 words or less. How can you reflect on what it is you want to communicate in 12 words or less? And can you be as meticulous as possible and intentional with those words. The other thing that comes up when you were sharing, which is so true. So, Luca's got two bottom teeth, two top teeth. And what I've really realized, like the amount of compassion and also the recognition of like how I experience it, courage, like you're exactly right. Not only does he not have a filter, but when we think about all of the when we think about all the tools that we've developed to manage our internal environment, he or she doesn't have that. So how I experience it, they become one with the entire experience. So imagine how many, like having a toothache or a tooth issue, it's one of the most painful things. And anyone who's had dental issues recognize, like, it'll drive you nuts.
Yeah.
You won't sleep. It's incredibly painful. So imagine that. And you don't have the tools, the awareness, the resources to manage the experience and manage yourself in that. And so you become the pain. And so when I've held him and we're up all night, like it's actually been really powerful. So as opposed to like, yeah, hearing him cry is hard to hear, but I've had so much more compassion than I ever would have thought. I'm like, he's literally in ceremony all day. So when when he's crying and he's in that pain, I'm like, holy fuck, he's in ceremony right now. And that's when I throat sing. And that's when I bounce him. And we just go back and forth for an hour. And I'm like, imagine what this is doing. And like, it's not even imagine, feel what this is doing to his nervous system, to my nervous system, and to our nervous system. To anyone who's been in any ceremony knows there's like there's a lifelong bond that's created in those spaces. And if we take that same mindset, that when he's in these experiences, he's in a ceremony, it's like when you meet that from the heart and you hold that, it's I'm like, damn, he is so courageous, or like he is so fucking brave. God damn it. Like it's it's taught me a lot, to your question earlier, man. That's amazing.
I love that. I love that. It's such a beautiful perspective, because like we would never, similar to what you're saying before about saying these things to your son, like we would never judge someone in ceremony for having an experience. But how often do we judge others for their experience that they're having? And I mean, how easy it is to get upset with a child for keeping you up all night. But they're literally just having the most genuine, authentic experience. And it has nothing to do with you. They're just literally in it. Man. And that's why I that compassion is a lesson that I feel like every single time I go into that space, I build more. I'm like, oh, wow. And going back to like bringing Sarah, like how we want to be in every moment, like bringing that level of ceremony to every moment, such a great reminder. I mean, I'm actually looking forward to that, because ceremony is my favorite place to be. It really is. And man, just being that loving, that compassionate, that open, that grounded all the time is like, man, I'm like trying to put words to it, but like hopefully you can feel it and just, yeah, it's just a gift. Yeah.
It's a gift, man. And it's like he or she will teach you so much. It's just like, are you there for it?
Yeah.
Am I fully there for it? And get a lot of reminders.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like imagine just imagine what it would be like to be an infant. Just imagine. To see really the world, like to never be in a room before, and like to see and like put him on the rug, and like you just see him like just like touching the carpet. I'm like, Jesus, this is profound.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, Jesus. And he's just like looking up and giggling, and then it's like a million different experiences.
Wow.
I'm like, he's like, he doesn't speak.
Yeah.
He's like taught me so much. It's like he's a little Buddha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to see the beauty and the surprise and the delight in just everything. I had a memory from one of our first men's retreat in Colorado. We were leading together, and Jared, tall Jared, happy Jesus. He we were in ceremony, and he was like eating, I think, a sandwich or something, and he would take a bite, and he would just like, it was like he was experiencing that bite as an infant, that like you were describing Luca eating his first berry, like the light that just beamed. So that's just how I'm experiencing like every single, and it like lit me up to see him in that experience. Yeah. And he was just walking around just eating the sandwich like one bite at a time for like an hour. And yeah, just to even just like going into this in this moment, like how much joy. I know a lot of this podcast has been about me like looking forward to all this. I'm just so deeply grateful to have this perspective. I think that's really what I'm all coming to in all of this, is that like I feel genuinely excited because I have this perspective about what this child is bringing. But me, just a few years ago, I wouldn't have seen it that way. I would have seen that child crying and keeping me up all night as an inconvenience and a nuisance to me. And that's why I think, I mean, speak about you and so many of our friends. I think it's great that bringing children into the world in this way, with this perspective, these perspectives. And so thank you for doing your part.
Yeah, my pleasure, brother. I love what you said. Just like sum it up. It's a gift.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gift. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's a fucking gift. And like, I don't want to get too off topic, but when you were talking about Jared, like so he's just about 10 months. I think we started introducing foods after 6, like slowly.
Yeah.
But talk about like his first food was avocado. And then I think, I don't recall what his second food was egg yolk. So like introduced one food at a time in a few days. But imagine, like, I was tripping out, and like, I don't even know how this sounds, but this is my experience. Like, watching him eat his first food, and just like putting it in his mouth, and he's like, you know, just like not enjoying it, and then enjoying it, and not enjoying it, and it's just like a million expressions, like love, dislike, detest, love, and then giving him salmon roe. And like, just like, which is big and fishy. And then he was doing good with 1. Then we gave him 2, then 3. Then and he was like, good. And then we gave him 5, and he was like, just on. I was like, oh my gosh, he got literally salmon egg oil all over him. So he's gonna reek of salmon egg. But like, all that to say, like, imagine the first time. Like how fuck, it's amazing. Like, I'm fucking in it, right? We're in it. Like, there's always new experiences in life, and so much of it is our perspective around it. But like, she's literally going through one first experience after another. What does the rug feel like? I took him outside for grass a few months ago, and his the soles of his feet are so thin, right?
Mm.
So I put him on freshly cut grass, and he like shrieked and like ran to me. I was like, oh my god, that's like fucking needles for this guy.
Oh,
And so like,
wow.
yeah, so it's just like there's just an infinite number of examples of like, wow, and then he holds me, and then I calm him down,
Yeah.
and I wet the grass, and now it's soft, and I kind of like beat it down.
Yeah.
Then I put him, and then he's happy.
Wow.
And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then I pull a berry off, and he's just so there's these infinite numbers of first experiences, and each one I get to see him, witness him, and then also reflect on like what was that like for me, or where else am I, like how many new experiences am I having these days, and first times, and so I get to relive it in some way, shape, or form through him. So first food was avocado.
Oh, love it. I mean, I know how much I love avocado. I can't imagine the first time. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'll find out shortly. Oh man, thank you. I knew that we were going to start off with fatherhood and talking. I didn't realize we were going to go so thoroughly into it, but I'm really glad we did. As you know, and now everyone else knows, we're literally recording this like at go time. We were joking. Mike Salemi might be helping deliver my daughter. But no, it's obviously very present for me, and still very present for you, of course, and just appreciate it. Is there anything as we're winding this show down? Is there anything that else you want to share, either on that or something completely different about the work you're doing? Do you want to touch on anything else?
Man, this is the most important work that I'm doing. So like everything else is because of this, or is in service to this. Like my role to support men to help heal generations, and like doing that right now, our whole conversation. So it's like, this is all I want to be talking about. And it's like, yeah, movement stuff, all that stuff's great. But like, this is where my heart is, into like, see you guys and to feel you in Victoria. And like, I mean, I was literally just a few months ago. And oh man, I'm beyond grateful for this conversation. Super stoked for you guys. If anybody's interested, I have a podcast called The Path that Chris was on.
It's fantastic.
That's where I would just say, if people want to find me there, Instagram, Mike.Salemi. But nah, man, this is everything. So thank you.
You're so welcome. So welcome. Yeah, and huge shout out for the work that you do and your podcast. I mean, if you guys like this episode, like, you're gonna like Mike's show. We are for sure brothers from other mothers and fathers, just to clear that up. But I feel so closely connected to you, and just super value everything about you and how you show up in our friendship. And so I'm actually really glad this surprise came through. Like a few hours ago, Mike had some time open up in Austin, so we got to do this. So thank you for making it happen. And you're always welcome here.
I love you, brother.
Love you too.